What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Phase 6, your source for music, business, motivation, and support. It's your boy, Sir Love. I got another dope topic for you. We're getting ready to talk about how not to lose your music masters. Now, this is a big conversation. A lot of people in the indie world and, anyone that's making records right now wants to know, how do I keep my masters? Well, let's talk about it. Phase 6. All right, jumping straight into it. 5 ways that you can lose your music industry masters. I want to break this down. I want you guys to pay attention to these 5 things because these are things that can affect you going forward, especially if you're an artist that wants to keep your masters. Now, before I talk about those 5 things, let's talk about the benefits of having your masters, right? A benefit of having your masters is long-term ownership and the decision-making power of what happens to your music and how that music earns you income or revenue, right? So, like, if you own your masters, you get to make money off that ownership of that master from years to come in the form of various different publishing opportunities, other buyout opportunities, just other opportunities in general, which are out of the scope of this video. I've talked about that in other videos on the channel. Now, let's talk about 5 ways people actually lose this long-term money, this revenue, this power that they can have. All right. Number 5. Work for hire agreements. The quickest way to lose any type of ownership in a record is a work for hire agreement. That's because a work for hire agreement basically says that you're doing work for a fee, and whatever you're doing, you have no ownership in. It's basically the same as being an employee or a 1099 employee or something like that for a company. Many of you guys have worked a job before, right? You go, like, let's say you did McDonald's. I worked at McDonald's in high school, right? I worked at McDonald's. I made the burgers. They paid me $5.85 an hour, which is some BS, right? I paid $5.85, okay, an hour. And did I own the burgers? No. Did I own McDonald's? No. Did I own anything? No, I owned nothing. I had no equity. I got no stock. I got nothing in McDonald's. I just was paid a fee for my service. That's pretty much what a work for hire agreement is. You have no ownership. You come, do your work, you get your fee, you go on about your business. So that would mean that my number 5 way to lose your ownership is if someone gets you to sign a work for hire on something that you feel that you're supposed to own. Now, typically, I did a whole video on work for hires. I suggest you watch it if you haven't heard about work for hires, but typically they'll do this to a person that's not supposed to be integrally involved in a record. Like, you're coming just to put a bass line down, or you're coming just to demo the track for someone else. Typically they'll give you a work for hire, right? But if you find yourself making the whole beat and doing the whole project and doing this whole magnificent project or whatever, and you sign a work for hire, you just lost all of your masters, and you may not even be aware of that because they just gave you a check. They gave you a contract and a check. You took the check, signed the contract. You didn't understand that you just gave everything away. So number 5, work for hire agreements. Number 4, the thing that all of you guys probably were waiting for, or you knew prior to clicking this video, a record deal. Yes, a record deal. Typically 9 times out of 10, you're going to give up your masters in a recording. Why is that? Because the record label is pretty much saying, hey, we're paying for your marketing, we're fronting you cash, we're doing all these different type of things to give you exposure if they're doing what they're supposed to do. There's some labels that sign you and shelve you don't do crap. That's a different story. But if the label is doing what it's supposed to do, then they're doing that for the benefit of reaping returns on their investment. They reap that return through ownership in the masters, okay? Now they got 360 deals and they eat you up on all sorts of areas as well. But traditionally it was, we own the masters. We get to sell the music as many times as we want, make greatest hits compilations, put it in televisions, movies, do all sorts of things with your music to make money back from what we did and from the investment that we put in you to make you a star, right? It's going to be very hard to get a record deal without giving up your masters unless the label knows that they're going to make some type of money off you some other way, okay? And traditionally, it's been masters. Today, it's masters and a full 360, which brings me to my next number. Number 3. 360 deals. We talk about this all the time. Most artists in the indie space hate 360 deals. They hate the concept. Most people that have been in the business for a long time hate the concept. Unless you're a person benefiting off the concept, then you may love the concept. 360 deals are really just a hustle for a lot of different people, but that's another conversation. I've done whole videos on 360 deals, the pros, the cons. I try to stay neutral with my view. You can check those out. But one thing that is most likely guaranteed is if a company is not willing to give you a record deal and they're only willing to give you a 360 deal in the form of a record deal, then that means that they have no interest in giving up any masters at all. In a record deal, it's potentially, viable that you can negotiate some type of, ownership over your masters. But in a 360 deal, there's no negotiation. Pretty much, we don't even respect you enough to give you a traditional deal. We want to eat all these other ways, or we don't understand how we can eat off of your music. We plan on eating off your brand because your music isn't as strong as your brand. Whatever their view is, if they're giving you a 360 deal, it means you're losing your masters, okay? So that is another way to lose your masters. Common, you guys already knew that. That was nothing suspicious. Number one's going to shock you. But before we go to number one, let's hit number two. Number two, publishing deals. Publishing. Now, the trick that you guys may not understand when we break down a publishing deal is that you cannot do a publishing deal and a record deal in tandem. What traditionally happens is there's two signatures. Like normally when you get a record deal, there's multiple places you have to sign. Sign here, initial here. That's if you're getting a major deal, right? If you're signing some type of deal where, it's smaller, it's a production deal, there's, 1 or 2 pages in the contract, no more than 7 pages in the agreement, something of that nature, and it's going to look a little bit different. But traditionally, if you're giving up publishing, you're giving up master ownership, you're giving up these type of things, traditionally you're going to have to sign in multiple places because that second signature or one of those signatures is going to be for publishing. So even in your 360, there's a publishing deal incorporated. In your record deal, they normally try to put a publishing deal in there at the same time. Or you can do neither of those deals and do publishing by itself. Traditionally in a publishing deal, you may not give up your masters at all. You just give up other types of ownership and royalties, etc. But you can sign a publishing deal that requires you to give up your masters. All right. I really want to make this a two-way one and say publishing/production because I normally see this a lot in production deals. A production deal, please watch my video on production deals, but it's pretty much something that you're going to sign with someone that's, not a major, it's a producer, it's a writer, it's someone that's affiliated with someone that has some type of clout that's going to help you in some type of way. They give you a production deal and they normally tie it with a publishing deal, and that publishing deal is where they take your masters away from you. So watch out for production deals. Okay, so far we talked about a work for hire deal, we talked about a record deal, we talked about a 360 deal, we talked about a production/publishing deal. But what is the easiest way to lose your masters? I mean, so far everything I talked about requires you to sign something. So pretty much if you don't sign anything, you won't lose your masters, right? Not necessarily. The easiest way to lose your masters is number one. Number one is not spending any money. Now that sounds crazy. What do you mean don't spend any money? All right. A lot of you guys, if you're independent or you're a person that's hustling, trying to get on, you're young and you're moving from studio to studio, you're recording, with random people at different people's houses or different people's studios, and, you got an external hard drive, you're trying to keep your stuff or whatever, you're trying to figure it out. Listen, guys, a lot of times, when you do that, you're actually giving up your masters. You see, the masters belong to the person that put in the work to create the master, which generally means it belongs to the engineer or the person that owns the studio that pays the engineer. Who's the person doing the physical work to record that record into a medium meaning some form that can be reproduced, right? In today's world, it's digital, right? Back in the day, it was some type of huge tape, right? And it's, technology advances, but whoever's recording that technically owns that. You're going different places and you're recording at someone's house, and that person decides they want to keep the master recording. Well, they own that master recording. Now you can go to court and you can fight and you can win and this, that, and the third, but if they went to court with the same lawyers just as strong as yours, you're going to lose. So recognize that when you go to these different places, I advise you have some type of agreement with somebody that's recording your music because they own your ish. If you was to leave, let's say you record there and, their computer crashes. They don't owe you anything for your computer crashing. They lost something that belonged to them. It never belonged to you in the first place. It was their computer, it was their time, it was their labor. Now, you still own the copyrighted material on there, right? You're still going to own, the usage of your voice or the likeness of your voice. You're still going to, you can still win in court over those type of things. But from a basic foundational level, they did the work You didn't pay them for the services. They own the work until you pay for the services. And right now, if you're independent and they're independent and no one knows nobody and they're just, I don't just want to say independent, I want to say if you're obscure, like no one knows who you are, no one knows who they are, right? Then there's nothing to fight over. But the goes up, you know, and it gets 2 million streams, and the record company says, okay, we want the record, but they have the master. You're going to find yourself in a situation where you're going to have to re-record the whole record somewhere else, and it's never going to quite sound and feel like the original record. That's the reason why it's called the master, because no matter how many times you record the song, you can never quite make it sound just like this version. It is the master version, the version for which all other versions are created from, and that engineer can hold that version hostage. So the safest thing for you to do is make sure that you have a copy of that file when you leave the studio. If you have a copy, the engineer has a copy, then down the line, if you end up fighting over it, it won't matter because you still have control. You still have physical ownership on your external drive of that session when you recorded in the studio, so that if your record did blow up and get 2 million plays or streams or whatever it got, you can go to whatever company, distribution company, label, whatever, and say, here's my record, and send it off, right? And have ownership of it. So these are the 5 ways that people traditionally lose their masters. Now, I did a whole video talking about masters, and I don't think all of you guys truly understand what a master is. I mean, I gave you a couple insights just now, but let me really break that down. So next video, we're going to talk about what a master is. That way you guys can understand in context what this means for you. Maybe I'll do a video on how to keep your masters. Talked about how to lose them. We'll talk about how to keep them sooner or later too. I don't know everything, but I know a lot about a little and a little bit about a lot. My name's Sir Love. I'm trying to give you guys everything that I got. Go to www.phase6.com. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me. Support the cause. I'll put a lot of materials out there to help you guys. Look at the description. There's things in the description that are designed to help all of you people that are trying to make it into the game or that are already making it in the game, that are looking to refine and better their career. I got you. Phase 6. I'm out.